ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, The Passing Away of Bhismadeva in the Presence of Lord Krishna. Text number 10. Krishnam cha tat prabhavagnyah. Krishnam cha tat prabhavagnyah. Asinam Jagat Ishwaram. Asinam Jagat Ishwaram. Hridistham Pujayamasa. Hridistham Pujayamasa. Mayaya Upata Vigraham. Mayayopata Vigraham. Krishnam chatat prabhavagnya. Asinam jagadishwaram. Hridistham pujayamasa. Mayayopata Vigraham. Krishnam chatat prabhavagnya. Asinam jagadishwaram. Hridistham pujayamasa. Mayayopata Vigraham. Krishnam chatat prabhavagnya. Asinam jagadishwaram. Hridistham pujayamasa. Mayayopata Vigraham. Krishnam chatat prabhavagnya. Asinam jagadishwaram. Hridistham pujayamasa. Mayayopata Vigraham. Krishnam chatat prabhavagnya. Asinam jagadishwaram. Hridistham pujayamasa. Mayayopata Vigraham. Krishnam tat prabhavagnya. Asinam jagadishwaram. Hridistham pujayamasa. Mayayopata Vigraham. Krishnam chatat prabhavagnya. Asinam jagadishwaram. Hridistham pujayamasa. Mayayopata Vigraham. Krishnam cha tat prabhavagnya Asinam Jagatishwaram Hridistam Pujayamasa Mayayopata Vigraham Krishnam cha tat prabhavagnya Asinam Jagadishwaram Hridistam Pujayamasa Mayayopata Vigraham Krishnam cha tat prabhavagnya Ashinam Jagatishwaram Hritistam Pujayamasa Mayayopata Vigraham. What meaning? Krishnam, unto Lord Krishna, cha, also, tat, of him, prabhavagnya, the knower of the glories, Bhishma, asinam, sitting, Jagatishwaram, the Lord of the universe, Hridistam, situated in the heart, Pujayamasa, worshipped, Mayaya, by internal potency, Upata, manifested, Vigraham, a form. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Lord Shri Krishna is situated in everyone's heart, yet he manifests his transcendental form by his internal potency. This very Lord was sitting before Bhismadeva, and since Bhismadeva knew of his glories, he worshipped him duly. Translation with repetition. Lord Shri Krishna is situated in everyone's heart, yet he manifests his transcendental form by his internal potency. This very Lord was sitting before Bhismadeva, and since Bhismadeva knew of his glories, he worshipped him duly. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. The Lord's omnipotency is displayed by his simultaneous presence in every place. He is present always in his eternal abode, Goloka Vrindavana, and still he is present in everyone's heart, and even within every invisible atom. When he manifests his eternal transcendental form in the material world, he does so by his internal potency. The external potency or the material energy has nothing to do with his eternal form. All these truths were known to Sri Bhismadeva, who worshipped him accordingly. Thus ends the Transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we are discussing the chapter 9 where it talks about Bhishmadeva's passing away, and most importantly in the presence of Lord Shri Krishna. So in this last few verses we saw the background of how this passing away of Bhismadeva is going to take place. So we saw how Maharaj Yudhishthira along with his brothers and Lord Sri Krishna, they all came to the place where Bhismadeva was lying on the bed of arrows. We also saw in the past few verses the various great sages from across the universe. They all came to see this wonderful event where Bhismadeva is going to leave his body. And in this verse, furthermore, there is a description about actually the glories of Bhismadeva. While here we see that Bhismadeva is being referred to as Prabhavagnya, the knower of the glories. So he knows the glories of the Lord and therefore he is glorious. And this verse is helping us to understand further the position of Bhismadeva, and through him we can also understand the position of the Lord. So here it is being said that the Lord Sri Krishna was actually sitting next to Bhismadeva. Asinam Jagadishwaram, the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna is sitting next to Bhismadeva, sitting before Bhismadeva. And in this verse, one very important word that we can, two words that we can pay attention to is Pujayam Asa. And if you remember, even in the last verse, this word was used. Pujayam Asa Dharmagnyo. So there, Bhismadeva was being referred to as one who knows religious principles. And in this verse, he is being referred to as Prabhavagnya. And the word Pujayam Asa, which was referred in the last verse, Prabhupada translates that as welcomed. Whereas in this verse, Prabhupada translates the word as worshipped. So it is very important, the same word, different meanings. In the last verse, the description was about how Bhismadeva received and welcomed the great sages. So in context of the great sages, how did Bhismadeva act? That is being referred there, and therefore Prabhupada is translating the word Pujayam Asa as welcomed. Whereas in this verse, Prabhupada, because Bhismadeva is talking about the Lord, or his perception, his vision of the Lord is being described here. And therefore, Prabhupada is translating here as worshipped. So this word bhajate, as Prabhupada refers, that this only refers to the Lord. So the word actual worship is meant only for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada is bringing that very nicely in this word-to-word translation, and also word-to-word meaning, and also in the translation. So in this verse, we can see some very important points. One of them being that Bhismadeva is worshipping the Lord duly. To actually worship the Lord is not very easy. It is not at all easy. And to appropriately worship the Lord, it is even more difficult. And furthermore, it is being said here that the position of the Lord is known to Bhismadeva. It is very rare to find devotees who understand the true position of the Lord and who can worship them appropriately. So these two attributes are being demonstrated in this verse, the attributes of Bhismadeva, to know the position of the Lord and to worship him appropriately, duly. So this is also very important to see the reciprocation of the Lord and his devotees. The Srimad Bhagavatam is actually the transcendental narrations about the Lord and his devotees. And one can see here that the Lord is coming all the way to sit next to Bhismadeva. Although Lord has nothing to do, he doesn't have to do this. Yet, for his devotees, he takes all the trouble and he reciprocates with them. And therefore we can see here the Lord is personally coming and sitting before Bhismadeva. So it is quite significant that the Lord is coming and sitting next to Bhismadeva. So these transcendental reciprocations between the Lord and the devotees can be seen in Srimad Bhagavatam. So first, we can understand that to understand the position of the Lord is very, very difficult. In fact, there are many people who think that the Lord does not exist at all. And even if there are some people who think that the Lord exists, they think the Lord exists in an impersonal way. Actually, yesterday we went for book distribution and we were given a very nice location. The location was something like this, in the corner of the room. So you have the entrance from that side, you have another entrance from the other side, and we are in the corner. And interestingly, we were surrounded by other spiritual organizations. And even a church people came. So, they have to cross all the people and then they have to come. So if they are okay after traveling all these people, talking to them, they would find us. So, if you look around, all the different temples, spiritual organizations, almost all of them were impersonalist. So, that the idea that the Lord exists in a personal form doesn't exist. So, it is not an easy thing that people can appreciate the Lord as a form, the Vigraham, the Lord has a form, Lord is a person. It is not an easy thing. Just because we hear it every day, it looks very easy. The one who was sitting next to us, he was like constantly coming and he's opening a book. He's from another spiritual organization. He opens a book and somewhere or other he says, Prabhupada writes, God is a person, and he immediately says, he criticizes impersonalists. So he comes, he says, no, I will not take this book. He goes back. Then he comes back and he opens another book. So basically they also practice Raja Vidya. And interestingly, we also have a book called Raja Vidya. So he moved around, he saw different books, and he said, maybe I'll open the Raja Vidya and maybe he'll find some connection. But then again he opens Raja Vidya, he again finds the same thing. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and one must do devotional service, Bhakti Yoga. So he's again thinking, I came for Raja Vidya, again Bhakti Yoga is coming. So he's again going back. So he went multiple times before he actually took Srimad Bhagavatam, the first canto. So it is not easy to understand the Lord has a form. Lord is a person. It is actually very, very difficult. The most common understanding of the ultimate truth is not easily available. And he says he has read Upanishads, he has read this, he has read that. But to understand the ultimate truth as a person is very, very difficult. And it's actually the special mercy of Mahabhagavatas and the Mahajanas like Bhismadeva, who is helping us to understand how to perceive the Lord, how to see the Lord in the rightful way. And therefore we must be very grateful to Srila Prabhupada for helping us to open our eyes to see the rightful way. Otherwise, despite having so-called knowledge in Upanishads, Vedas, and so on and so forth, one cannot come to the right conclusive understanding. And it is very important to see how devotees are very, very merciful. In fact, he already got some Bhagavad Gita before. So he was not interested to take Bhagavad Gita. So this is another very important point. We'll again see it in the later in the later part of the discussion, that how devotees are very kind in distributing this knowledge. So simply by distributing that little knowledge, giving little prasadam, is quite helpful for a living entity to turn towards the Lord. So we must appreciate that these may look like very simple things, but these are not very simple in real. So here the Lord, so here it is being said that the Lord is situated in everyone's heart, yet he manifests his transcendental form by his internal potency. So here is a unique position that Bhismadeva, being a Mahajana, he knows the true position of the Lord. He knows the true religious principles. Now here he's so Lord Sri Krishna is situated in everyone's heart. So he's able to see that. So the Lord is present everywhere in everyone's heart, and yet he is present there. Now this is very interesting. How can someone be simultaneously present somewhere else and at the same time here? It is contradictory. Usually it is very difficult to comprehend how can someone be simultaneously present in two places. If you are inside the heart, how can you be outside the heart? No, but this is very important to see that the Lord's position is very, very unique. And this cannot be understood by any sort of mundane understanding of materialistic way of thinking, nor by any amount of speculation. And therefore it is said in Bhagavad Gita that neither the demigods nor the great sages can understand who the Lord is. That He is the beginnerless, He is unborn, He is the proprietor of everything. Even the great sages and demigods, they cannot understand. So this point that the Lord is simultaneously existing both within and without is something which is explained in Bhagavad Gita and which is also understood by all the great devotees. So even if you look at Kunti Maharani, in her very beginning prayers, she says this. So in fact, the very beginning prayer she says, Namashe Purusham Tvadyam Ishwaram Prakrite Param Alaksham Sarva Bhutanam Antar Bahir Avasthitam. So she is saying that you are existing both within and without everything, yet you are invisible. So Lord is within and without. So just like even in the morning prayers that we say, Bahir Narsimha, Hridaya Narsimha. So the Lord is outside and Lord is inside. And in fact, Kunti Maharani is able to see this, that the Lord is present before her, yet the Lord is entering into the womb of Mother Uttara and protecting Parishit Maharaj from the Brahmastra of Ashwatthama. So they are able to perceive the Lord in the rightful position. So this is very important. So without able to perceive the Lord, there is no question of worshipping the Lord rightfully, duly, in the right way. Actually, everyone, based upon their modes of nature by which they are influenced, they understand the Supreme Lord in a specific way. But only one who has transcended the material modes of nature can actually duly perceive, by mercy of another devotee, and the Lord in the rightful way. So here we can see that Kunti Maharani is saying the same thing as what Bhismadeva is saying. Similarly, if you look in Bhagavad Gita, also we see Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sannavishto. So Lord is also saying there that I am present in everyone's heart. So although this is a fact which is repeatedly mentioned, it is not easy to realize. How much can we realize that the Lord is present in everyone's heart? If one can understand the Lord is present in everyone's heart, our dealings will change with everyone. We will not have the material discrimination, the so-called racism, so-called casteism, so many divisions of the society has created in terms of nationality, religion, caste, creed. All these things will vanish when we see every living entity to be a part of the Lord and the Lord being present in everyone's heart. Because we do not perceive the presence of the Lord in our heart, in another's heart, we act very whimsically. We think no one is seeing. So what is the harm criticizing someone, saying something bad or being harsh? We do not see that the Lord is also watching all these things, both in my heart and from the other's heart. He is saying, how are you dealing? And in fact, it is very important to also note the behavior of Bhismadeva here, that he is not only worshipping the Lord duly, but he is also receiving and welcoming the great sages appropriately. So this is also very important. As we see, there are three levels of devotees: the Kanishtadhikari, Madhyamadhikari, and Uttamadhikari. The Kanishtadhikari recognizes the importance of worshipping the Lord, but he does not see Lord anywhere else. As soon as he's in the temple, he is worshipping the Lord. But as soon as he's outside, he is no more sees the Lord anywhere. But that is not the higher perception. While Lord is present, he is also present everywhere. He is present in everyone's heart. And therefore, he deals accordingly with those who are favorable, who are innocent, and he also accordingly avoids people who are unfavorable. So this is the quality of an Madhyamadhikari. A Uttamadhikari sees everyone as a servant of the Lord. He sees the Lord everywhere. In everything he sees the Lord. And he thinks, I am the only one who is not a devotee. Everyone else is a devotee. And in this regard, it is also very nice that even in various places, this perception, this vision of a devotee is very wonderfully explained in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam in various places. And one of the verses in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita talks about a true yogi. How does he see? So here it is said, verse number 29, Sarva bhutastam atmanam sarva bhutani chatmani ikshate yoga yukta atma sarvatra samadarshanaha. So ikshate. So how does he see? How does a yogi, how does a devotee see? A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized man sees me everywhere. An advanced devotee sees Lord everywhere. This is very important. So unless one does not see Lord everywhere, one does not duly act. One cannot act rightfully. Just like if I know this is not my property, if I am able to see it rightly, then I will deal with it rightly. But if I think everything is my property, then I will misuse it, I will use it the way I like. So when we don't understand the Lord's position, that Lord is present everywhere, he sees everywhere. Now, Prabhupada explains this very nicely in terms of understanding what does it mean that a self-realized man sees me everywhere. So as I said, the one who was next to our table yesterday, he was saying, you are Brahman, I am Brahman, everything is Brahman. He is also appearingly seeing the Lord everywhere. But his vision is not the same as what the devotee's vision is. And Prabhupada explains this very well in a lecture that he gave on this verse. Prabhupada says that a devotee sees the presence of Krishna everywhere. But that does not mean that everything is Krishna. This is very important. Prabhupada says that devotee sees the presence of Krishna everywhere, not that everything is Krishna. So, in other words, Prabhupada is saying that everything, just like a child, when a mother sees, just like if I see a child, maybe I can think of the father, mother. So similarly, by connection, one can see the source of it. Similarly, when one sees the energy of the Lord, one also remembers the source of this energy, that is the Lord. So in that sense, everything that is existing in this material world is nothing but an expansion of Lord's energy. And therefore, as soon as one sees that, one remembers the Lord. Oh, this existence, this energy, everything is coming from the Lord. As we see in Bhagavad Gita, there are so many descriptions, and the taste of the water, the sunlight, the moonshine. In this way, one can see around everything, and one can immediately remember the Lord. One can see the Lord. On the other hand, someone who is not developed in knowledge, the rightful knowledge as presented by the Acharyas through Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, they have to speculate to understand where is the Lord, how is the Lord, and so on and so forth. But a devotee can see by seeing Lord's energy that the energy and energetic are in one sense not different, because energy has to come from the energetic. At the same time, there is a distinction. So this distinction is understood by the devotees but not by the others. So having this proper vision to see that, here it is said, the true yogi observes me in all beings. So, as soon as a devotee sees another living entity, he is also seeing the Lord in the heart. He is also seeing the living entity as part and parcel of the Lord. So, just imagine, as soon as we see someone in that perspective, that he's part and parcel of the Lord, and there's a Lord inside everyone's heart, there is due respect. And Prabhupada also explains, that does not mean that because I see the Lord in everyone's heart, I will go and embrace a tiger. No, that is not the point. The point is you give due respect to it. You understand that it has its own rights, its own place, and you respect that place where it exists. You do not overpower that. But when we don't see that, the tendency of overpowering happens. And also sees every being in me. At the same time, the devotee also sees that everything is actually resting on Lord's energy. There is nothing that is separate from Him. Everything, every manifestation that we see, every living being is nothing but an expansion of Lord's energy, and therefore also sees every being in me, both ways. So this is very important, that the Lord's presence has to be understood. Lord's glories has to be understood to actually develop surrender to the Lord. In fact, Prabhupada writes in another purport that people usually think God is great, but they do not know how great is the God. Unless one does not understand how great the Lord is, one actually cannot develop surrender. In fact, in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, just before the Chaturshloki Bhagavad Gita, the 4 important verses which summarizes the essence of Bhagavad Gita, there is this beautiful verse which says, Etam vibhutim yogam cha mama yo veti tattvataha so vikalpena yogena jujjate natra samshayaha. So here it is saying that who will worship the Lord without doubt and completely engage in Lord's service in an unalloyed way? Those who know in truth the glory and power of the Lord. So one must understand the truth, who knows in truth this glory and power of mine. So unless one does not understand the glories of the Lord, in fact it's a very nice purport, Prabhupada writes in that, generally people know that God is great, but they do not know in detail how God is great. Here are the details. If one knows factually how God is great, then naturally he becomes a surrendered soul and engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord. When one factually knows the opulences of the Supreme, there is no alternative but to surrender to Him. So this is very important. So why we should hear, one of the important reasons is that by hearing from the right sources of the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, we will come to know the glorious position of the Lord, His opulences, in truth. And the natural consequence of knowing the glories of the Lord, of how great He is that we will naturally become surrendered. Without that, we cannot properly situate ourselves in unalloyed devotional service. We cannot situate ourselves to surrender. So, in this 10th chapter, very beautifully, the opulences of the Lord are described, especially the first few verses before this. The position of the Absolute Truth, Supreme Lord, is described as how He is unborn, He is beginningless, He is the source of all sources. And then it is being said that in order to engage in unalloyed devotional service, one must know in truth the glory and the opulences of the Lord. And Lord is saying of this there is no doubt. So one who knows will naturally engage in unalloyed devotional service. And therefore it is important, it is very important that one continuously hears about the Lord. That will enhance one's devotional service. And even more so, it is furthermore enhanced when one hears the glories of the Lord in the association of the devotees. The association of the devotees is very powerful. When the glories of the Lord are heard in the association of devotees, greater potency is released, which enhances our devotional, our faith, our devotion, and so on and so forth. So these are very important principles which Srila Prabhupada has incorporated in our day-to-day life. An opportunity to hear about the Lord, glories of the Lord, in the association of the devotees. So these are all practically available for us. So if we utilize these opportunities, then naturally we will further our devotional service and worship the Lord duly. Another very important point that is being mentioned here is that in the purport Prabhupada writes that the Lord's omnipotency is displayed by His simultaneous presence in every place. So this is very important to note that the Lord in His Paramatma feature is present in every atom, is present in everyone's heart. So actually the Lord is simultaneously present. This is His omnipotency. And just like there are various examples of Lord being present with the 16,108 queens, in each of the palace, each of the queen is thinking the Lord is present before me. And He is the henpecked husband, He is doing exactly what they want. So this is Lord's omnipotence, He can simultaneously be present. And another important thing is that yet He manifests His transcendental form by His internal potency. So one other thing is that the Lord is simultaneously present in His Paramatma feature, and yet He can manifest Himself in His transcendental form. So this is also discussed in the appearance of Lord Krishna. So during the appearance of Lord Krishna, there is a question. If Lord is the creator of everything, then how can He come in the womb of Mother Devaki? If He is outside the creation, how is He coming inside the creation? And in order to dispel this doubt, Vasudeva explains this as how to understand that Lord is outside His creation and is in the womb of Mother Devaki. So he says, it is not very difficult to understand. Just like Mahavishnu is lying in the causal ocean, and from his breathing, these innumerable universes are coming, and then he is entering as Garbhodakshay Vishnu into the material manifestation. So in one way, he is outside this manifestation as Mahavishnu, and then he is entering into that as Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and then he is further entering as Kshirodakshay Vishnu into each of the atoms and also into all the living entities. So he is outside and he is inside in the way this material creation is created. And if that is the case, then why is it so difficult for him to come in the womb of Mother Devaki? So the Lord can do this so-called counterintuitive things, so-called opposite things. And Prabhupada explains in 3rd canto, 5th chapter, in one of the purports, Prabhupada writes there in this conversation between Vidura and Maitreya that it is very important for us to understand that these are opposite things, contradictory things, because we think the Lord as one of us. But for the Lord, these are not impossible. From our understanding, we may think these are all difficult. How can one be present in all these places? How can one be inside and outside? But for the Lord, these are not impossible. So it is very important to understand the position of the Lord. And only then one can worship Him duly. And this point, how do we worship the Lord duly? So, and therefore, in this age of Kali Yuga, it is not very easy for most general people to worship the Lord very easily or appropriately. And therefore, the appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is to be greatly appreciated. Because of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, actually we learn how to worship the Lord. He is so magnanimous, He is so merciful that He comes to teach by His own personal example how to worship the Lord. And in this regard, I thought I'll just share a small pastime from Chaitanya Charitamrita, where there is a description of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu traveling to the South India, And so from Jagannath Puri he goes all the way south, traveling through Andhra Pradesh and downwards and so on and so forth. So during his travel he goes to one of this place called Kurmakshetra. So Kurmakshetra is a place which is in Srikakulam district, which is the topmost part of Andhra Pradesh bordering Orissa. So there is a beautiful temple of Lord Kurma. So when Lord goes there, as he goes to any other temple, we will see the same description. Lord goes to the temple, he sees the deity, he becomes ecstatic, he starts chanting and dancing. As soon as people see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the temple, they become devotees, they start chanting. As soon as the villagers who see the other people chanting and dancing who saw Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they become devotees, and in this way the Sankirtana movement would just expand as soon as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered any place. And in this place, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after having taken the darshan of the Lord, there was a Brahmana named Kurma Brahmana. So he invites the Lord to his place, and he duly washes the feet of the Lord along with his family members, and then they drink the water, and then they serve the foodstuffs to the Lord which were offered to the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then they take the remnants. And after this is done, the Kurma Brahmana, who is materially very happy, he thinks that he says to Mahaprabhu that I want to come with you. I don't want to live with my material family life. I want to just leave immediately. I want to come with you. So there is a nice conversation in this regard. So Brahmana begged Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, my dear Lord, kindly show me favor and let me go with you. I can no longer tolerate the waves of misery caused by materialistic life. So in order to worship the Lord, actually one has to give up the materialistic way of life. If one leads a materialistic way of life, it is not possible to worship the Lord. And therefore Narottama Das Thakur says, Samsara Vishanale Diva Nishi Hiya Chavale. He says that because this material existence, this material way of life causes a lot of trouble in the heart, full of fire burning all the time. Always some trouble or the other keeps coming. So one cannot pay attention. Just like there was a big wildfire, forest fire in Canada recently. As soon as there was forest fire, everyone has to run from that place. So first they moved from one place to another place, but then the winds started blowing faster and the forest fire went on further, so they had to move from that place. So how can they focus on anything? They're constantly worried when the forest fire is coming, So where can they pay attention? So similarly, if our lives are constantly in the forest fire of material existence, how can we pay attention to the worship of the Lord? So this Kurma Brahmana is also thinking like that. Although in one sense I have all the riches, but still the materialistic way of life has not gone away. So he says, no, I don't want this, I'll just come with you. So in this regard, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives very nice instruction to him. So Prabhu kahe, aiche baat kabhu na kahiba, grihe rahi Krishna nama nirantra laiba. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving a very, very practical instruction here. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, don't speak like that again. Better to remain at home and chant the holy name of Krishna always. So how to worship the Lord? In the older times, one has to leave the place, one has to go somewhere else, completely dedicate and live a life of sannyasa and worship the Lord and so on and so forth. But here, in this age of Kali Yuga, it is not very advisable for people in general to just randomly change their position, to randomly leave their family life. This is not recommended. And therefore, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving a practical way of how to worship. So he is saying the Brahmana not to be too eager to give up the family life. It would be better to remain with his family life and try to become purified by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra regularly under the direction of a spiritual master. This is the instruction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, if this simple principle of Nirantara Nama, to constantly chant the holy name of the Lord, especially Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, if one constantly chants, one doesn't have to change the position. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, if one is little literate, if one can study a little bit, it's good they can read Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam and other books. If not, just go on chanting. That is the way to worship in Kali Yuga. And in fact, in the very next verse, which is the most quite popular verse, which says, Yare dekhe tare kahe Krishna upadesh, Amar agnay guru hana taraye desh. So this is, Prabhupada writes in the purport, this is the sublime mission of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And Prabhupada says that sometimes people come and they inquire whether they have to give up family life to join the society. Prabhupada says that is not our mission. One can remain comfortably in his residence. We simply request everyone to chant the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And if they are little educated, they can read our books and give up the 4 sinful habits of meat eating, intoxication, gambling and illicit sex. Simply by doing this, if one, under the direction of the spiritual master, follows these simple principles, one can actually worship the Lord appropriately. So this is very nicely explained in this section. Prabhupada's purpose are very nice here, as how staying at home, staying in any position, one can still attain the highest perfection. One can worship the Lord appropriately. So in fact, Prabhupada says, and even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says to Kurma Brahmana, indeed, if you follow these regulative principles, you will again meet here, or rather, you will never lose my company. Actually, it is said that the Lord is present where His glories are chanted constantly. Wherever pure devotees chant, His glories is always present. But even if you chant on the order of this pure devotee of the Lord, and in fact Prabhupada writes that wherever Sankirtana is happening, especially offenseless chanting, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is present there. Wherever true glorification of the holy name is happening, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is present there. If a devotee follows the instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he lives in the company of the Lord. Wherever he lives, he converts that place into Vrindavan and Navadvip. In fact, Prabhupada writes, it does not matter for a devotee who is following these principles, it does not matter whether one lives in a holy place like Vrindavana, Navadvipa or Jagannath Puri, or in the midst of European cities where the materialistic way of life is very prominent. So Prabhupada is saying, it doesn't matter. If simply these instructions are followed, one can see the presence of the company, association of the Lord. And one will not be influenced by any of the materialistic influences that is surrounding. This is the secret of success for one advancing in Krishna consciousness. So this is a very nice instructive thing, that if we just continuously chant, read the books and follow the regulative principles under the direction of the spiritual master and engage our energies in the service, then no form of materialism can touch one. And Prabhupada is saying one does not even have to live in any of the pilgrimage places, because the Lord is present. One can feel the company of the Lord by simply following these simple instructions very nicely, and will not lose the touch of the Lord. That means one will not be away from any of the dham, because dham means where the Lord is present. So these are wonderful instructions of how Bhismadeva is able to see the Lord in right spiritual vision and is worshipping duly. He is also welcoming and treating the other sages who have come there. These are all very important for us to learn, as how we see the Lord, how we worship the Lord, and how we treat the devotees. So I'll stop here. If there are any questions,